In a landmark decision that is already sending shockwaves through Washington and beyond, the Supreme Court has struck down the Trump-era tariffs, a move that many legal experts are calling one of the most significant rulings on presidential power in recent history. By overturning these tariffs, the court has dramatically curtailed the president's authority to unilaterally impose trade restrictions, signaling a major shift in how the United States will handle international commerce going forward. The ruling, delivered today in a packed courtroom, marks a sharp reversal of decades of expanding executive authority over trade policy and sets a new precedent for the limits of presidential power. Headlines across the nation read, SCOTUS overturns tariffs, presidential trade power curtailed. The story is dominating news cycles, with analysts and commentators debating the far-reaching implications. Businesses, workers, and politicians are scrambling to understand the new landscape. Many companies that relied on tariff protections are now reassessing their strategies, while workers in affected industries worry about job security and future prospects. Supporters of the tariffs call it judicial overreach, arguing that the court has undermined the president's ability to protect American industries and jobs in a rapidly changing global economy. Opponents, however, hail the decision as a victory for free trade and the rule of law, saying it restores proper checks and balances and prevents potential abuses of executive power. The court's decision redefines the separation of powers, shifting significant trade authority back to Congress, and setting the stage for heated legislative debates in the months ahead. The sudden change has left the future of American trade policy uncertain, with pressing questions about consumer prices, manufacturing jobs, and the nation's relationships with key trading partners around the world. The next chapter will be written in Congress, in boardrooms, and in households across America, as the country adapts to a new era of trade policy and reconsiders its place in the global economy. To truly grasp the impact of today's landmark Supreme Court ruling, we need to understand how presidential power over trade has evolved and why this moment matters so much. Let's take a step back in history. The story of presidential authority over trade is one of gradual transformation, shaped by global events, economic crises, and shifting political priorities. Over the decades, presidents have steadily gained more control, often in response to the need for swift action in a rapidly changing world. The U.S. Constitution, written in the late 18th century, originally gave Congress the exclusive power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. This was a deliberate choice by the founders, who wanted to ensure that such a critical aspect of national policy would be debated and decided by the people's representatives. But as the world grew more interconnected, Congress began to delegate more and more authority to the executive branch. Lawmakers believed that the president, with access to intelligence and the ability to act quickly, could better handle the complexities of international trade negotiations and crises. One pivotal moment came with the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This law, and especially its Section 232, gave presidents the power to impose tariffs for reasons of national security. At first, this was seen as a rare, last resort measure, used sparingly and with caution. Decades later, the Trump administration dramatically expanded the definition of national security to include broad economic concerns. This allowed the president to justify sweeping tariffs on steel, aluminum, and even products from long-standing allies, actions that would have been unthinkable in earlier eras. This bold move sparked intense controversy and a wave of legal challenges. Critics argued that it let the president bypass Congress entirely, undermining the checks and balances at the heart of American democracy. The pattern continued with tariffs on Chinese goods, imposed under a different law but following the same principle. Major economic decisions made by the executive branch alone, without a congressional vote or public debate. Now the Supreme Court's ruling directly challenges this concentration of power. The justices have signaled that the era of unchecked presidential authority over trade may be coming to an end. This decision marks a significant shift, signaling a renewed role for Congress in overseeing and shaping U.S. trade policy. Lawmakers will once again have a say in decisions that affect millions of American jobs and the global economy. In many ways, the Supreme Court's decision closes the chapter on an era of unilateral presidential tariffs. The balance of power is shifting back to Congress, restoring the constitutional vision of shared responsibility over America's economic future. The Supreme Court's decision in American Institute for International Steel versus United States is a turning point. The majority opinion states Congress cannot delegate its core constitutional responsibilities, especially on trade. The court ruled that national security, in trade law, must be interpreted narrowly, not as a catch-all for economic protectionism. Section 232 remains, but with strict limits. Future tariffs require a direct, credible link to national defense. The president's ability to act alone on trade is now sharply limited. Existing tariffs under the broad interpretation are void. The judiciary has ended the era of the tariff man president. The Supreme Court's decision is rippling through the economy, sending shockwaves across boardrooms, factory floors, and trading desks. From Wall Street to Main Street, everyone is trying to understand what this new chapter means for their future. The ruling has become the top story in financial newsrooms, with experts and analysts debating its far-reaching consequences. For manufacturers and importers, the end of tariffs means lower costs on raw materials and components, which could translate into more affordable products for consumers. Retailers are hopeful that price tags will drop, making everyday goods more accessible. Importers are already recalculating their supply chains, anticipating a boost in profits and a surge in product variety on store shelves. But for domestic steel and aluminum producers, the outlook is far less optimistic. These industries, once shielded from global competition, now face the prospect of cheaper imports flooding the market. Workers worry about job security, and some companies are bracing for layoffs or even closures. The sense of uncertainty is palpable, as families and communities dependent on these industries brace for change. Relief in one sector is matched by anxiety in another. While some celebrate the promise of lower costs and expanded trade, others fear for their livelihoods. The business community is divided, with winners and losers emerging overnight. Internationally, allies like Canada and the EU welcome the ruling, seeing it as a return to fair rules-based trade. Foreign officials express optimism that this decision will ease tensions and restore trust in global economic partnerships. Many hope it signals a new era of cooperation and stability. Retaliatory tariffs on American goods may soon be lifted, offering hope to U.S. exporters who have struggled with lost sales and shrinking markets. Farmers, manufacturers, and small businesses across the country are watching closely, eager for new opportunities to sell their products abroad and rebuild relationships with overseas buyers. The U.S.-China relationship, however, remains complex and uncertain. Some tariffs on Chinese goods are now in legal limbo, creating confusion for businesses that rely on predictable trade rules. Negotiators on both sides are reassessing their strategies, knowing that the balance of power has shifted. The Supreme Court's decision weakens the president's negotiating hand abroad, making it harder to use tariffs as leverage in future trade talks. Diplomats and world leaders are recalibrating their expectations as America's approach to trade policy enters a new phase. The global economic landscape has shifted overnight. Trade routes are being redrawn, and financial markets are reacting to the uncertainty and opportunity this decision brings. Analysts are watching for ripple effects that could reshape industries and economies around the world. American businesses and workers must now adapt to a new reality. Companies are rethinking their strategies, investing in innovation, and searching for ways to stay competitive. Workers are seeking new skills and opportunities, determined to thrive in a rapidly changing world. The world is watching how the U.S. will lead on trade. As headlines flash across global newsrooms, the decisions made today will shape the future of international commerce for years to come. The Supreme Court's ruling has reignited America's deep divide over trade. Tariff supporters argue protection is vital for jobs, national security, and resilient supply chains. They see tariffs as a defense against unfair foreign competition and a way to keep critical industries at home. Free trade advocates counter that tariffs are a hidden tax, raising prices and hurting competitiveness. They argue open markets drive innovation, growth, and global stability. Both sides agree. Trade policy shapes the nation's future. The debate is no longer theoretical. Congress must now decide. At its core, this is a constitutional battle over separation of powers. The Commerce Clause gives Congress, not the President, the authority to regulate trade. Over time, Congress delegated some power for efficiency, but recent events exposed the risks. The Trump-era tariffs tested the limits, prompting legal challenges to defend Congress's role. The Supreme Court's decision reaffirms that Congress cannot give away its fundamental powers. The ruling is a check on executive overreach and a reminder that economic laws must be made by the people's representatives. The power to regulate commerce is back where the Constitution intended. Wall Street responded to the Supreme Court's decision with a surge of activity. Stocks of companies hurt by tariffs, like automakers and retailers, jumped, while U.S. steel and aluminum producers fell. Investors expect lower costs and less trade tension to boost growth. The dollar weakened slightly, and Treasury yields ticked up, signaling optimism for economic expansion. Yet, uncertainty remains. Will Congress deliver a stable trade policy, or will gridlock return? The market's optimism is cautious, hinging on what lawmakers do next. The financial world is watching Washington closely. The verdict opportunity, but with new risks. The Supreme Court has handed Congress the responsibility for America's trade policy. Lawmakers can no longer defer tough decisions to the White House. Crafting a new trade strategy will require compromise among diverse interests: industry, labor, agriculture, and consumers. Congress must address urgent questions. What to do about China? Should some tariffs be codified? How should trade laws be reformed? The opportunity to reclaim constitutional authority is here, but so is the challenge of overcoming gridlock. The world and the American people are watching to see if Congress can lead. The future of U.S. trade is now in their hands. The Supreme Court's decision forces America to confront its identity in a globalized world. Will we turn inward or compete confidently on the world stage? The debate between protectionism and free trade is about more than economics. It's about our vision for the future. The court has returned the power of choice to the people and their representatives. The path forward requires a new consensus that balances resilience, opportunity, and fairness. Strategic trade agreements, investment in workers, and modernized laws may point the way. The choices we make now will define our economic destiny. The conversation begins, not just in Washington, but in every American community.